All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today we have a jam-packed show. We have a very, very interesting guest today, one of my best friends in the entire world. He is the IT contracts lead for ExxonMobil. Nick, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good, man. Good to see you. Good to talk to you. And I'm happy to be here. I'm honored.
Yeah, man. So now tell me, how does one from Katy, Texas, of all places, go from Katy, Texas to Malaysia, and you're in charge of organizing and running these global IT contracts? I mean, just talk to me about your role at Exxon and ultimately leading those IT contracts in a whole different country. I mean, what was the culture shock like? Of Yeah, just talk to me about that, man.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's the response could be half an hour long, but yeah. So starting here, I actually interned here in procurement doing IT contracts, and came in and started. My original portfolio was mainly hardware contracts, and then eventually kind of moved into some bigger software contracts. And we've got we call it a global business center. We've got a few around the world, one of them being in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And so there was an opportunity for me to go and meet the team over there. Got a lot of coworkers over there. We had people from all around the world there, several expats there. And my most recent trip there it's a really, really cool experience. It was the first time that, I'd seen these people and met with these people other than being on Zoom, and being able to spend, several hours with them, not just on Zoom, actually in person, and, doing things around the city and around the country it's really next level. It's hard to put into words. Um, but I guess to answer part of your question about, this role, um, you know, contract management is multifaceted. There's a lot of different things that go into it. You've got to put out fires. You've got to manage relationships. You've got to manage relationships with vendors and your business line internally to the company. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's pretty much drinking from a fire hose constantly. Especially in IT, stuff changes so quickly. Prices can change so quickly. There's a lot of acquisitions and mergers in the IT space, so it's a lot to, get used to and be fluent in. Definitely took me quite some time to really learn all of this, and it's intimidating at first, but it's been a really great first role. It's such a large oil and gas company, so I enjoy it a lot. I've, met a ton of people. I've gotten to interface with, a lot of high-ranking people in a lot of companies, which I didn't think I would be able to do so early in my career, and I'm enjoying it a lot. And if the start of my career and, how fast-paced it's been is any indication of how the rest of my career is going to look, I'm very excited. So I don't know how much of that question I answered, but that's the rundown.
So Nick went to Texas A&M, where he got a degree in industrial distribution engineering, and while he was at A&M, he was also the president of the Aggie Club of Engineers, otherwise known as ACE. And Nick, talk to me about your experience at Texas A&M, and I know this could be a very long response, but just tell me about some of the things you learned there at Texas A&M that have helped you now in your corporate position with Exxon?
Man, so yeah, that's a great question. So I, I, to put it bluntly, I wish I was still in school, to some degree, because that's how much I love A&M. But I will say, coming into this role and after, doing a stint as president of the organization I was in, I really understand why companies look for recruits that were presidents and vice presidents of their organizations. Running an organization, especially at a high level, is very much like running a business. I mean, you're managing a budget, you're managing people, you have to motivate people to do stuff. And it's even better, in my opinion, because it's like if you don't if you don't perform at a company, you're going to get fired. Um, if my officers in an organization don't perform, there's not much I can really do. Like nothing is really going to happen to them. So motivating them to, do well, and put out good work for the organization is tough. So I learned a lot about delegating, going into, I was involved in the organization from the very beginning and was always trying to do stuff myself. You get to a certain point where you really have to delegate, and it's tough. Like, you kind of want to do things your way, but you have to put the right people in your cabinet, and you have to, it's not every time you're gonna have a good team or the team that you want, but you have to figure out what motivates people. So really, just delegation and figuring out how to motivate people is huge. Um, the other thing I will say is managing people is also a skill that you don't really get unless you take any sort of like business management class or anything like that, which I did take, but it wasn't until my last semester for my business minor. But that is a very, very unique skill, and if you're good at managing people, you will go far. I'm getting the hang of it here. I don't have to do too much of it here, as far as having subordinates, but there, you have to manage your business line. You have to manage, the vendors that you work with. So it's definitely taught me a lot. I definitely feel like I have a leg up in this company from having served as a VP and a president of a student organization and a very large one. So yeah, it's taught me a lot, and I'm super grateful for that.
So during Nick's undergrad at A&M, he did a internship with Halliburton and also Exxon. So Nick, talk about those experiences and the differences you learned, what you learned, and the differences with each internship, and just talk about how you went from being an IT major to, or I'm sorry, a industrial distribution major to being involved in procurement. What was that like? Because certainly those are very different uh, areas of interest. So to talk about kind of how you fluctuated from industrial distribution to procurement, and also touch on your internships as well.
Yeah, I will, and it's a good question because my internships, there's kind of a story with, it's a story to how I got here, and they're all related. So, I interned at Halliburton summer of 2022. They have a very well-known large supply chain management program. It's called the SCMP program. It's a lot of industrial engineers, and then you get a few like mechanical here and there. And basically the program is, you go in, there's usually about 20 interns spread out through Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. Not sure if it's still structured the same as when I was an intern, but you basically get two projects. You get a business impact project and a safety project, and they're tied to real business needs. So it's not just something that gets made up. It's something that's going on in the company or at that site that they need you to help fix. So I interned here at the headquarters in Houston and had two pretty unique projects. My business project was around demand management and forecasting, and then had a safety project about just safety in the warehouse, and learned a ton from both of those internships. Since my business project, or it's both of those projects, not internships, but my business project was, since it was heavily focused around demand management and forecasting, I got to work a lot with procurement. Actually, like every day was working with procurement. And I thought it was super interesting. I got to learn about what these people did, people's stories, and what the everyday is like. And I kind of liked it. I'm like, you're the customer every day, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, I had a great internship at Halliburton. I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about that company. That internship is incredible. Like, even if you don't want to be in oil and gas, if you want to be in any sort of supply chain role or even just like any engineering role, project manager role, that is a really, really good internship to pursue. Um, we were presenting to management every single week. Every single week, we would have to have a new presentation on the progress that we had made. And it was to the entire management committee, essentially. So we had to make sure that we were progressing week to week. And then we had a midterm presentation, and then we had like a final presentation where all the interns flew into Houston, and all of their managers flew in, and it was in this big auditorium. It was, it's pretty nerve-wracking just being this undergrad kid in front of all these like, really big time managers at the company. And so anyway, it was phenomenal. Like I learned so much and I grew so much professionally in that internship. But that was where, I got a taste of what procurement's like. And so the following career fair, I knew I wanted to get into oil and gas, and was talking to, all the big companies, and of course ExxonMobil was there. And then, got an interview with them. They're really the only oil and gas company that I was super interested in after talking with recruiters. Um, uh, Shell, I think, has a pretty good procurement program as well, but was more interested in ExxonMobil. And so anyway, I landed an internship, was also in IT procurement. I also kind of had a double internship here. So I was in IT procurement, but I was also in our what we call our managed service provider procurement space. So basically, it's essentially how we outsource. And I really enjoyed it. I had two projects here that were great. High visibility, high impact projects. Met a lot of senior leaders here, which I really appreciated. And I loved the culture. And what I found here that was so interesting was, you know, so many people at other companies have a diverse background. They're like, I went to this company, this company, this company. When I was an intern here, basically everyone I met is like, yeah, I've been with this company 10, 20, 30 years. And that was a very common theme. And I'm like, well, if people are staying here a long time, it's probably a pretty good sign. And so yeah, I met a lot of good people, had a really good time, received an offer to come back full time. And in between my summer internship and starting full time, I actually did a co-op throughout the fall of my final year of school. And so that was great. I got to shadow people that were basically on this IT procurement team. Got to understand what it was like, a day in the life, and what I was really getting myself into. And I really loved it. And that was kind of like a path that wasn't traditional for summer interns to continue throughout the fall. So I'm super grateful for it, and really gave me a leg up starting here in June. So to answer the final part of your question about how I go from ID to doing IT stuff, they don't teach you a lot of IT stuff unless you're majoring in MIS or whatever in school. And so yeah, I mean it was totally new. Procurement wasn't super new to me. Just I'd taken a procurement class in school. Had been introduced, like I said, at Halliburton. So the procurement space wasn't super new, but learning all these IT terms and learning, you know, different part, you think you know a lot about software and hardware until you actually get into, a position where you're buying this stuff, on a day-to-day basis. It's super complex, and it changes every single day, which is great. It's what I love. I don't want to be stuck doing the same thing every day. And every morning it's like I open my laptop and it's like, what's happening now? Like what's going on? What kind of emails am I getting? And what's this vendor doing? What's this big, giant software vendor doing? So I love it a lot, and that's basically the story of how I got here.
So with that being said, Nick, with handling your global IT contracts, what's been the most challenging one that you've handled so far, and what did you learn from that experience?
Uh, Unfortunately, I can't speak on it.
Mm.
But I guess some of the challenges that, just in a general sense that I go through is, you get into these situations where maybe you don't, or I guess these negotiations where you don't have a ton of leverage, right? Like you might be, um, you know, so integrated with a certain software, a certain, hardware that it's hard to, when it comes time to negotiate a deal, or if your business line, wants to explore new products, it's like, maybe we want this new product or this new software or whatever. and we go to these vendors and we're like, hey, we want to explore this, it's a good fit for us. And they're like, okay, it comes time to talk about price or commercials or stuff, it's like it's so sometimes you don't have leverage because you're plugged in with this company, and the cost of switching is really high. So that's a big challenge. Another big challenge that I found is just from I guess from a new employee perspective is like terms and conditions. Like I went my whole life just clicking accept on terms and conditions, and I never read them. And now that's my whole life. So, that's tough. A lot of vendors will, whether it's malicious or not, they'll stick terms in there that, are favorable to them, that, you might not pick up on. And there's, you know, people are just getting more strict and strict with with AI being so prevalent now, and you really have to watch out like where your data goes and how vendors are using your data. Like that's another big thing that I want to highlight is like a lot of vendors are just, and you're doing it when you sign up for newsletters. It's like they're using your data and they're using your history and your what you're doing on your browser to basically train their models, and train their data. It's the same thing that goes on in our space, and data security is a really big challenge right now. And one last thing is a lot of vendors are starting to switch from perpetual licensing to subscription-based licensing. So um, a perpetual license is essentially, you can use their software or whatever for as long as you want. You might not be getting maintenance or support for that software, but you can use it as long as you want. And we're seeing a big change from, these perpetual licenses to subscription-based cloud licenses. So there's a multitude of issues, but those are really the main ones that I see on a daily basis.
So I want to touch on your travels a little bit more, Nick, because I think it's very exceptional that someone of our age is now overseas doing global work, working with global teams. I mean, you've been to Malaysia already. You were about to go to China. Unfortunately, that fell through, but you've been to Vegas. Just talk to me, Nick, about traveling for work. And are you a little bit surprised at how quickly Exxon um, wanted you to get out there? I mean, you went from Katy, Texas to the Far East, some exotic environments, Malaysia, Japan, Vegas. I mean, were you a little bit surprised at how quickly it all kind of came about?
I was, yeah, I was. So I was and I wasn't. So a big reason I chose this company was the opportunity to travel. One day, I'm certain I'm going to do an expat assignment one day. That's very high on my list. I want to go somewhere and live in a different part of the world for a period of time. It did happen really quickly. Um, I got pretty lucky, I guess, for it to happen so quickly. But you know, it's it's something traveling and seeing the world is something I'm super passionate about. And so I'm getting to see different parts of the world and understand how different cultures work, and how different people at the company, working on the same things I work on, how they operate in a different part of the world. And getting to experience, South Asian cult or Southeast Asian culture is very different from, what I grew up in. And it's
Mhm.
fascinating. Like it's really great. And it's hard to really put it into words, but I can't tell you how grateful I am for, getting these opportunities. Um, there's no one that I know in, my close friend group that, has gotten these opportunities. So I feel really lucky to be able to have seen the world, so much of it so quickly. I know it'll keep coming, and I'm going to continue to pursue opportunities that allow me to travel. Um, I've got I've got trips for probably the next 2 years, just personal trips lined up. The itinerary set for where I'm going to go in the next 2 years, and hopefully I get to add to that with work travel as well. The cool part is about traveling too is you can hop on Zoom meetings, which is, I think a big reason why companies are traveling less. I know, this company is, we've since COVID, we've started to travel less, but that's every company. Um, and I never really knew what it was like to travel and get to connect with people, globally. Um, but after getting to actually do it, it's so eye-opening to see how much better your relationship is with vendors, how much better your relationship is with people at your own company when you actually get to like spend time with them and get to know these people. So yeah, super grateful, and there's really nothing that can beat meeting people face to face. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Okay, so you just answered one of my questions. So you would be open to the idea of living overseas maybe one day. And
Yeah.
on in that same breath, would you be open to raising a family and meeting your wife overseas too? Or are you thinking more so raise your family here in America, or would you be open to that?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends kind of where I'm at in life. Right now I would go right now in 1 second, wherever, I mean, I would go anywhere, wherever they would send me. Um, as far as like raising a family, it really depends on the year. So a lot of expats here, they'll go to South America or overseas or, Bangkok or whatever, usually when, their kids are a little bit younger. So, um, for example, we just had a guy come back. He went to South America um, when I think his kids were like probably 2 and 4 years old, and he's coming back now. His kids are 7 and 9. So like those are probably like the crucial years that you probably want to be back. They're going to be in middle school in a few years. So yeah, if I had small children, I would do it. Not that I wouldn't be open to doing it with children that are older. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say yes to everything. And then, you know, if I get to a point where I need to reevaluate, like, hey, now might not be the time that I go do an expat assignment, then, I'm going to speak up about it. But yeah, as of right now, I would go now. As far as meeting a wife, yeah, I mean, if it happens, it happens. Just doing my own thing right now and focusing on myself, focusing on my career, and yeah, if the opportunity came up, I'm certainly open to it.
So now going back to your travels a little bit, Nick, did you notice any differences in the business practices from the Far East, Malaysia to a Las Vegas per se? I mean, did you have to like bow or anything when you were doing your negotiations in Malaysia? I mean, I'm sure the business nuances when you're making negotiations is a little different from Vegas to Malaysia.
Yeah, it's quite different. But I will say one thing that I love about Southeast Asian culture is the bowing. Like I love it.
Yeah.
Like I think it's so cool. Um, I was bowing every chance I had. Um, but yeah, I mean it's different. Like it's different the way people work. It's different. What's really different is the way, the different cultures approach problem solving and like how they think. Like, I met some guys who work in our office in Brazil, and just the way that they think compared to how our people in Malaysia think, compared to people in Las Vegas. Like it's very different. And I had two pretty back-to-back trips there, and yeah, like and not that one way is better than the other by any means, but I think it's beneficial for me to see and understand and hear how people in like Malaysia think. And I think it's beneficial for them to hear how I think and people from the States think. It just kind of gives you a wider breadth of, I guess, problem solving tactics.
Mhm.
Um, and so anyway, it's very different. It's hard to put into words, but hearing the things that concern, maybe people in KL might be different from the things that concern me here in Houston, even though we're working on the same project. And, maybe that comes from their management. Because, there could be two people in two different countries that have the same manager. Um, but it's hard to put into words. And I know this probably wasn't the greatest answer, but yeah, it's very different. So I'll put it that way.
Well, speaking of problem solving when you're traveling, I mean, when you're traveling solo, you're already kind of having to problem solve a little bit as far as getting from point A to point B, where you're going to eat, just
Yeah,
all the logistics that go into traveling. I mean, that's just problem solving in itself. And when you factor that into the problem solving you're having to deal with, the negotiations with your global team, that just, it's a whole different um, scale of problem solving. So not only are you having to problem solve for your own self and your own itinerary, but also for the global team you're working with as well. So that's very interesting. So
yeah,
Nick, I think it's worth mentioning too that when you were in high school, you were a real estate agent. And I'll tell y'all a quick story. So during COVID-19, Nick and I would do home workouts where we worked out in his game room upstairs when all the gyms were closed. You know, we took matters into our own hands and we weren't going to let the gym's closure affect our gains per se. So we loaded up our duffel bags with textbooks and whatnot and made some just made some weights and we had a workout. But I'll never forget Nick's phone would be ringing off the hook, all these clients he had in his real estate business, and he would have to answer these calls. I mean, guys getting evicted, the whole 9 yards, and he'd be on the phone for half an hour, 45 minutes. Well, I would have to work out by myself, and by the time the phone call would end, I mean, the workout would be over, and I'd have to go home. So but from a very young age, Nick's work ethic has been very evident in his day-to-day lifestyle. I mean, if you know Nick, you know how much he loves to work out. But when business calls, you know, that is the number one priority. And at a young age, Nick showcased that ability to stand on business. So, Nick, just talk about kind of that upbringing and getting exposed to the real estate business at such a young age and kind of how that helped you later on in life.
yeah. That's a hilarious story. Yeah, it was weird. Just I had to step out and it's like you're just working out in my house, and so by yourself. But no, man, those are good times. So yeah, I got my real estate license my senior year of high school and started working as a buyer's agent in the Houston area. Um, and that was a lot getting it took a lot of getting used to, mainly because here I am, this 18-year-old kid who's now in charge of helping this first-time home buyer buy a $500,000 home. Like, it's very, it's pretty intimidating at first. It's like they expect you to be the market expert, and real estate was so competitive. When I got into real estate, so this would have been 2018, 2019, there were 34 licensed realtors in Houston alone, and that number probably doubled during COVID. Um, so it was already really competitive when I started, and the big thing is like, what which realtor is gonna be the expert? Which realtor is gonna get me the best deal? Is it gonna be this 30-year veteran who's been selling houses in Houston for like I said, 30 years, or is it going to be this 18-year-old kid who just got his license a few months ago? And so really, what that taught me really early on is to be able to, I guess, speak confidently about what you do and about your knowledge, because it was really easy to, be timid or whatever, and they're like, hey, like, should we ask for this or should we ask for this, or what's the best price we can get? So you really have to, I guess, you know, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but really like buckle down and know your stuff, like know what you're doing, and be able to back up your data for your clients. And you have to not only do you have to know about what's going on in the market, but you just have to know a lot about homes in general. What's good, what's bad. You have to know a lot about inspections. You'll get these inspection reports that are 100 pages long, and it's like you're looking at this stuff like what's important, what's not. And so yeah, it really taught me to be professional from a very, very young age. I say very young, but I mean 18 is pretty young to be doing, such large transactions. And just, it helped me be confident in the work that I've done. And it's easy to kind of do your research, do your analysis, and not be super confident about it. But you have to trust your work, and you have to trust, and you have to be confident in what you do. So, and I think that's helped a lot in this role. I've gotten to interface, I think, like I mentioned, a lot with some senior leaders here, and just realizing that everyone is human. We all drive on I-45, every day to get home. Like we all do the same things. They have high positions, and I certainly respect that. But you just have to realize like these people are people too, and just be confident in your work. So super impactful experience.
So going back to your 18-year-old self, Nick, and just kind of reflecting on the level of success you have already obtained thus far in your career, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self, or even your college self at Texas A&M, now that you're on such a great trajectory as far as your career path? What advice would you give to your younger self, or to others out there who are in similar situations?
That's a good question. And before I answer it, I think I left something out from your last question, but my experience in real estate, I think, was super, super beneficial for this role, because it was contract negotiation. That's really what it came down to, and that's like the bulk of the job. So it's been super helpful, and I think again has given me another leg up. Coming into this role that's so heavily focused in contract negotiation. To answer your question, about advice I would give myself, um, I would say s- don't. I would tell myself not to sweat, a lot of the things you think are really important. So what I mean, and I guess don't sweat the small stuff is the way to put it, but even the things that seem really big when you're in high school or whatever really don't matter. And I think of it like, okay, think about your problems and think about whatever you're stressed out about, and think, is this problem going to matter in 5 months? Maybe, good chance. But the majority of the things that you're worried about and you're stressed about, you're not even going to remember in 5 years. Like I think about when I was in high school, and I'm like, what was I stressed and worried about? And like I could bring up like small things like whatever, my golf tournament, but like, is that going to matter? Like, does that matter today?
Which tournament are we talking about?
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, like like some of the stuff like, yeah, I'm stressed out about my golf tournament. I'm stressed out about like, I don't know, even tie it to real estate. Is this house gonna sell? Like, yeah, it's important in the moment, but does it matter now, 6 years later? No, that doesn't matter at all. And it's like, there's very, very few things in your life where the decision that you're about to make, or like the stress that you're under right now, is really going to matter in 5 years. And I mean like
But
very, very few
I
things.
would argue, Nick, that that way of thinking has awarded you the lifestyle and the career that you've had, because with that way of thinking, you're very disciplined, and you're very much organized, and you are worried about the small things, but those small things are important at the end of the day. I would argue that that way of thinking has kind of propelled you in life as far as your career.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is like, don't stress out. Like, of course they're important. Like they are certainly important. And you're right, the discipline every day, is important. But um, as far as from like a standpoint of stress and like mental capacity, the the things you're worried, like it's not worth really stressing about or worrying about. Like definitely give it your all every day and do everything you
Mhm.
can to, get better every day in whatever it is that you're doing. But in terms of like actually stressing out about stuff, it's not worth it, because, you just go into it. You might have this big presentation for school or this big project or whatever. Yeah, you don't want to be like, I'm not going to try because it's not going to matter in 5 years. Well, it actually might, because if you fail the class or whatever, then, you're going to be behind. Do your best, but in terms of like stressing out, oh my gosh, is this presentation going to go well or whatever, whatever it is you're working on, it's not going to matter in 5 years. So I agree with you, but at the same time, a lot of this stuff just isn't worth it.
All right. Well, I won't keep you much longer, Nick. I know you're a busy man. You've got a meeting to catch. But Nick, tell me, what's one misconception about ExxonMobil or any other major companies that people may misunderstand, that people totally don't grasp? One
Oh
misconception,
man.
Nick.
Um, Man, I could go several routes. Uh, I guess one, is that I don't want to make a blanket statement, but um, the fact that maybe we aren't as focused on as a company on like renewable low carbon solutions as people think we are. Um, the number one thing
Break
is
that
that,
down a little bit.
yeah, so like oil and gas is not going anywhere anytime soon. Like the world is so heavily dependent on it. Um, and with that being said, one of the biggest things that this company is focused on is providing accessible energy to regions of the world that don't have that don't have energy like we do. A lot of people, a lot of Western people in the West, especially specifically North America, I don't think realize how lucky we are to have such easy access to so much energy all the time. Like we are in a very we're a very small percentage of countries that have such easy access to energy. Um, but like I was saying on the low carbon front, like we have an entire business dedicated to low carbon solutions. Like and I don't know how much Shell and BP and the other majors are
Right.
focused on this stuff like we are. Honestly, I haven't looked into it because I'm not in that business, but I mean, it's every day I hear people talking about, what we're doing in the low carbon solution space. So it is a huge focus for this company. Like, we're the largest oil and gas company besides Saudi Aramco, largest public oil and gas company. And it is just super impressive to me how much of an emphasis we're putting on our low carbon business. So yeah, I think a lot of people think like, oh, ExxonMobil is this huge player, they're polluting the earth, whatever. And we have a huge advanced recycling plant in Baytown. I mean, it's like, I don't know if I believe it's the largest in the world, but it's huge. So that's a huge part of our mission is developing low carbon solutions. So no, we're not just this huge oil and gas giant that just pumps out pollutants into the air every day.
Nick, one last thing. What do you think people should know about you, Nick? Why should people care about Nick Dittemore and ExxonMobil?
Nice
This is your
Nardwar
time
reference.
yeah, right? Yeah. What should people know about you, Nick?
Oh man. Um, I don't know if there's anything people should know about me, but if you wanted to know something about me, it's just I think I already touched on it. Just do your best and
Okay,
just
well, here's
just
a better
chill.
question. Here's a better question. Nick, what does your life outside of Exxon look like for those who are interested?
I'd say it's a it's a chill life, but it's also adventurous, I would say. Like I'm always trying to do something new. I mean, like every weekend and even after work, like I'm trying to find something new to do, something new to explore. Really just I'm an experience guy, so I really like to have new experiences and do spontaneous things. I don't know, it keeps life exciting, and the more repetitive your days become and the more mundane, the quicker it goes by. So I'm trying to slow down my life at all costs, and that helps a lot with doing that.
Absolutely, Nick. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nick. I can't wait for more episodes, and I appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.